All right, here we are at the very beginning of stage 19 of Cambridge Latin, and this is still set in Alexandria, Egypt, and it's titled Isis, after the Egyptian deity Isis. And we can see a picture over here uh, on the very front, and this is stereotypically Isis, and in a lot of ways. Her name actually comes from the Egyptian word for throne, and that's why she wears a little throne on the top of her head. Although sometimes she'll wear a solar disc with horns and such, and she's got a little ankh there, which is a symbol of life, and then she's got a staff. Now, this is called a was staff, scepter or staff, and it's a symbol of power. She sometimes also has a papyrus staff. So she was the consort of Osiris, who is associated with kingship and death and rebirth, and so therefore they're both associated with fertility. And we'll see that a little bit in this stage uh, when we talk about some of her celebrations. So we're really just going to go over the model sentences here. There's not, properly speaking, any new grammar, or at least grammar that we haven't been exposed to from previous stages. Although there is a focus for this chapter, and the chapter's grammatical focus is going to be on demonstrative pronouns. So hic, haec, hoc, and illa, forms of illa. Also, there's going to be a few uses of negative commands. So noli/nolite, meaning do not, and then that form taking an infinitive. So, for example, if you were going to say to one person, don't run, you'd say noli correre. If you're going to say to multiple people, don't run, it would be nolite correre. All right, so let's jump into these model sentences here. Hic vir est Aristo. This man is Aristo. So hic is modified vir. Aristo est amicus Babili. So Aristo is the friend of Barbilus. Barbili right there is a genitive. In villa splendida habitabat, sed miserimus est. So he lives in a splendid house, a wonderful house, but he is very miserable. Okay, superlative adjective right there. Haec femina est Galatea. This woman is Galatea. So we can see the difference. Hic is nominative singular. Haec is feminine singular. Both are nominative. Galatea est uxor Aristonus. So Galatea is the wife of Aristo. This is genitive, third declension. Galatea maritum saepe vituperat, numquam laudat. So Galatea is always yelling at, cursing her husband. I added a her possessive in there. There's no word for it in Latin, but we need to make it flow in English. So Galatea is always yelling at her husband. She never praises him. Again, I added a him in there just for flow. Numquam is an adverb meaning never. Just a little bit of background. Aristo is a Greek name. It means best. That's very common. Common Greek names often will have a form of Aristo in there because they're best at something. So the Greeks like to name themselves like that. Galatea is a character from several different mythological stories. Specifically, there's the story of Aeacus and Galatea, and there's it's a story of set on Sicily of two young people, and there's the character Polyphemus, who's a one-eyed Cyclops who falls in love with Galatea. And then there's also the story of Pygmalion and Galatea. Pygmalion was a king of one of the Aegean islands who was a sculptor, and he sculpts a beautiful woman, an ideal woman who's made of stone, named Galatea, who who the gods take pity on him and essentially turn this stone woman into a real woman. So that's where that name comes from. Haec puella est Helena. Helena est filia. So this girl is Helena. Helena is, well, we'll just say the filia Aristonis Galatea, the daughter of Aristo and Galatea. So these are genitives. Let's see. Helena, this is where we get the name Helen from. Helen, like Helen of Sparta / Troy. There's some etymological arguments that her name means something like destruction, but it also is very close to the word for Greek, the hedes. So the general overarching category of Greek ethnicity, that is to say. Multi juvenes hanc puellem amant, quod pull kerima est. Okay, so many youths, many young men love this girl because she is very beautiful. So we have hanc is modifying juvenes. It's a, sorry, pardon me. It is not modifying juvenes. It is modifying puellem. So hanc puellem, it's a feminine accusative singular, demonstrative pronoun, and it's the direct object of amant. So many youths are loving this this girl because she's very beautiful, and that's a superlative right there. All right. Now, pompa splendida parvias Alexandriae procedit. A splendid, a wonderful, an amazing procession, procedit, is proceeding through the streets, parvias Alexandria, of Alexandria. So that's a genitive. Omnes Alexandrini honc pompam spectare volunt. All the Alexandrians want to watch this parade, this procession. All right, so omnes and Alexandrini are going together. Hanc is modifying pompum. Volunt is taking a complementary infinitive because it's from volo. Hiviri sunt sacerdotes Deiae Isidis. These men are the priests of the goddess Isis. So he is modifying viri. It's a nominative plural masculine. And Deiae and Isidis are both genitives. Aristo hos viros intente spectat. Aristo is watching these men intently. So this intente is an adverb, and hos is modifying viros. They're accused of plural. Sacerdotes statuam Dei parvias portant. So the priests are carrying the statue of the goddess through the streets. This is very common for a lot of ancient religions, and actually some modern religions, because remember that the statue was the embodiment, was the sort of physical manifestation of a particular, often not a sort of semi-corporeal entity, or at least they viewed the gods as being able to take a physical form, but they wanted to have a physical form that they could actually look to and worship. So they would often, that statue would live in the temple, but they would proceed it around on certain festival days. So let's see. Dei is a genitive right there. Okay. Hai puellae pro pampa corunt Helena. Has puelles intente spectat puellae coronas rosarum gerunt. So these girls run in front of the procession. All right, so they're forerunners, and hai is modifying puellae. They're feminine, plural, nominative. Helena spectat is watching intently, intente. Has puelles, these girls. So Helena is intently watching these girls. Has is modifying puelles, and they're accused of plural, feminine. And puellae. So the girls are wearing crowns of roses. So puellae is the subject. Gerunt is the verb. Coronas is the accusative plural subject. Yes, subject. Sorry, pardon me. Object. Object, not subject. And rosarum is a genitive plural that's modifying the coronas. And coronas can mean crown or can mean a garland. So it's essentially they had flowers in their hair. Not to make them sound too much like hippies, remember that flowers are symbols of growth. They are symbols of vegetation, and vegetation is often associated with blooming and fertility. And remember that Isis is a goddess of fertility. And so therefore, young girls they're considered in the flower of youth. They are at their most fertile, and fertility was extremely important to the ancient world because society was not necessarily overpopulated, and it was very important that the land and the people continued to reproduce. Otherwise, you never know, your society, your tribe, your village might die. It was often only 1 or 2 bad years of poor harvests away from people starving. So They really wanted to make sure that everyone was doing well, both the fertility of the land and the fertility of the people. So, pompa ad templum Serapidis advenit. So the procession arrives at the temple of Serapis. Serapidis is a genitive. Now remember that Serapis is a composite syncretic deity, and we have his name is a compilation of Osiris, and Apis. So Osiris is the traditional a traditional god that's associated as being the consort, so the more or less husband of Isis, and also with kind of an old kingship, if you will. He was a dying and reviving vegetation god. And Apis was a kind of bull deity, often associated with a kind of a sky father. This is again, especially in northern Egypt, right around the Delta area where Alexandria is, because it was a port, had a lot of different had a lot of contact with a lot of different cultures, including those of the Middle East, properly speaking, so Mesopotamia, with the Aegean, with Greece, and with Rome. And so they made these deities, which were often reflective of all the different deities that were in place there. So Serapis is perhaps syncretized with certain Mesopotamian deities like Haman or Baal. Anyway, so Serapis is we can say that that's why he is being associated with Isis here, because of that Osiris connection. Prope hoc templum stant duo juvenes. So near this temple, two youths are standing. So hoc is modifying templum. It's neuter singular, accusative. He juvenes tamen pompam non spectam. These youths, however, are not watching the parade. All right, and he is modifying Juvenes, again, nominative plural. So that is it for these model sentences. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to read Aristo in our next video. All right, see you there.